Folks are welcome to come up to the podium. Just a reminder to please state your name and your address before you begin speaking. And we're going to limit public comment for 5 minutes per person. Go right ahead.
My name is Mike Doyle. I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I've lived in various addresses in Falmouth for almost 40 years. I still have a great deal of interest in this. I would appreciate if the councils would turn off their microphone because we get a lot of feedback in the videos that I watched later of this meeting. And some unfortunate comments were heard recently from one of the councilors. I'm here to discuss the affordable housing Habitat for Humanity proposed situation for the town. I'm not against Habitat for Humanity. After I retired, I volunteered for 4 summers and helped build 4 houses, working 6.5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4 summers, driving nails. So I know quite a bit about their operation, how they do things. It's incredibly great construction because the labor is free, and they do, if the flange has 12 holes, they put 12 screws in it. So the houses are well built, but I think it's an inappropriate program for the town of Falmouth because of the children that will be living in those houses going through the school system. And I know Falmouth school system very well. My son went from kindergarten to high school here. There are a number of cliques that run in the high schools constantly. There are sports cliques, the people who are superior students clique, and so on and so forth. It is not easy to live in the town of Falmouth as a child, and now with the social media and bullying online that has exploded after my son's got out of school. He's been out, almost for 11 years now, and a lot of things have taken place in the last 11 years. Essentially, if you build this kind of housing here, and I checked on the value of houses in Cape and Falmouth a number of years ago, and the average house value here was $473,000 against $275,000 in Cape. Falmouth and Cape have the highest concentration of doctors in the state. Falmouth and Cape have the highest concentration of lawyers in the state. Falmouth and Cape have the highest concentration of business owners in the state of Maine. You're going to put kids whose parents might struggle to make the house payment on the Habitat house, even though it's going to be a low payment, and they're going to be having kids, equals in the school system, living in 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 square foot houses. We'd like to come over to my house, the little 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house that we're, on this little plot of land that Habitat got from the town of Falmouth behind the police station. We like to hang out at the house in the Woodlands that has a gigantic room like this for kids to hang out in. It's not going to be a good situation for the kids because the kids are very competitive in Falmouth because the parents are competitive. There's a reason why we have the Class A championship in skiing, because most of the kids who ski and win those championships, parents have condos either at Sunday River or at Sugarloaf. So I know a lot about this from both sides of the equation. My son lived in a $500,000 house with me and a $500,000 house at his mother's house, my ex-wife. He was the poorest kid in that group. All his friends were living in $1 million houses. Not all, but a big portion of them. So I heard from him about what the reaction was back and forth in those situations. So you imagine if one of these kids in a $280,000 house goes over to the Woodlands in $1 million house, what the reaction is between the kids in that situation. I don't think it's healthy for the children going through this neighborhood to be classified as living in a ghetto in Falmouth, because that's the kind of talk the kids use. And all the kids in high school, basically, the kids with money, drive their own cars to school. They refer to the school bus as the loser cruiser. And I don't think the kids living in Habitat houses will have their own private car to go back and forth to school, so they'll be in that group all the time. This is not something that I would want my child in that situation subjected to. I know this from the other side of it because when my girls were in small school, elementary school in South Portland, and I was working, I came to the school with the permission of the principal to pick them up in a helicopter that I was flying at the time. I could rent the helicopter for $385 an hour, and they are still taking hell from my picking them up at school in a helicopter 30 years later from their classmates. My daughters have never gone back to class reunions because they were tormented about it all the way through high school. So this thing goes both ways. Too much money, too little money. I think if the Habitat program was built in Westbrook or Wyndham or South Portland, the meshing of the kids into the school system would be less difficult for the kids living there than it would be in Falmouth. I think living here in Falmouth in a neighborhood of 10 or 12 or 15 habitat houses would be very difficult for them. And I don't think it would be a good idea. And I'll tell you one of the things I noticed that in superintendents, we have the highest paid superintendent of the 5 school systems, Cape, Cumberland, Falmouth, and Scarborough. Our superintendent, when I checked on this, was $179,000 a year, almost $180,000. In the people making over $100,000 a year in the school system, Falmouth is 53, which is more than Cumberland and Scarborough combined. Now, all you folks think low-income housing is good. When have any of you had a low-income person at your house for dinner? When have any of you gone to their house for dinner? Imagine your teenagers in that same situation. Is that what you want to subject their kids to? Because that's what you're going to do if you build these houses. In highest paid
Sir, you're at a little over the 5 minutes, just so you can wrap it up.
just a couple sentences. Highest paid teacher, we're coming second with $115,000. These are the low income people that you want to build houses for so teachers can live here. Director of facilities, we come in second at $129,000. Business manager in our town makes $193,000 a year. This is more than a United States senator. He makes $68,000 more than the lowest paid business manager, which was in Scarborough. I don't think we get $68,000 more work out of Dan O'Shea. In the last one, athletic director, we come in second. So we're either number one in payments or number 2 across the board. And how many people have had a teacher come to their house for dinner? Thank you.
Thank you.